guys in a Bible podcast, first podcast, and yeah.
I'm Easton.
And I'm Garner, and yeah, two guys in a Bible, and we're gonna be talking, and we're gonna be talking about our Lord Jesus Christ, always and every way, every day.
Just two guys trying to be Catholic in college.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes a tough thing to do,
Amen.
but we're here.
Easton has some questions for us.
We're gonna go around. Just start this first podcast. Something easy. Something both of us can talk about.
Something simple.
Something that we can just
Palpable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing too deeply theological. Although we might get there at some point. All right. Just some simple starting questions. Garner, why did you want to start this podcast?
Let me take a sip.
Do that.
I think I wanted to start this podcast because one, we're bros, and it's like every like guy duo. They're like, we talk about so many things. We could just make a podcast out of it. So
True.
I said that, and yeah, it'd just be fun, kind of something fun to do.
Yeah. How does this relate, to your popularity on YouTube?
And I got 2.2K views on one of my videos.
That's huge.
I'm pretty much like a celebrity on my campus, so a lot of people recognize me, and yeah, I just really wanted to elevate my fame to higher levels. Really.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. And I guess for me, I'm gonna try to answer these questions too. I think to start this, be a fun thing to do. I mean, I think everybody thinks they have what it takes to start a podcast, and why not try it? I'm always open to try new things like this, try to, I don't know, get myself out there, do new things that I didn't think I would want to do. It's like growing up. I know we all did it, especially if you're in college now. We all did it. We all tried to start a Minecraft YouTube channel.
Yep, guilty as charged.
Everybody wanted to do it because it looked sick. You'd see those guys and they'd be
popular MMOs, just playing with his wife.
Yeah, that's
playing Minecraft with his wife.
It seems sick, like all those YouTubers, and they made
millions of dollars.
A lot of money. Now most of them are bankrupt
or in jail,
or have
touched
a dying.
Kids. I'm not condoning that.
Don't want to do that. Or they have a dying music career.
Yeah, Sky does Minecraft.
Seems like that's pretty popular. But those things.
That was cool as a kid.
Looks cool.
Starting a YouTube channel. Why kids want to do that nowadays?
Me and my brother. I remember we tried it for a little bit, but I never posted anything. I remember we just recorded, and it was bad.
Like 2 hours worth of Minecraft.
It was bad. Yeah, just straight raw, unedited survival world. It was bad. But here we are now.
Yeah.
Trying this. Hopefully it's not as bad as that. I think it's going to be a lot better.
I think it's going to be a lot better. It's something we can talk about a lot. Minecraft, you can only talk about getting killed by a skeleton at 2 a.m. on your hardcore world and not being able to yell because your parents are asleep.
That's true. That does happen.
True story.
Happens to the best of us.
Yes.
All right. What do you want? What's the main focus of this podcast? What do you want to? What are the topics you kind of want to talk about?
So I think a lot is on the podcast. A lot of what we're going to be talking about is for sure theological questions. Like we could get into really hard-hitting topics like why does God allow evil? Why is God all good? Like how do we know that? What is justification within the Catholic frameworks? What's Catholic moral teaching? We can get into those, but also things that are happening in the world maybe that we can put a theological lens to, a Catholic lens to, and just be able to talk about it, be able to be two Catholic guys talking about it and just hear what we have to say. It doesn't matter if you don't agree, just being able to see another point of view from a topic.
Definitely. Yeah. I think that's huge, especially today in the Catholic Church.
Oh yeah.
Today, where a lot of people will look inward into the Catholic Church and see it as old person's church. You know, maybe their grandma
Yeah.
or their parents were Catholic, but now they're not really Catholic. I feel like that happens so often, especially for guys our age, where they whatever get into college and get around this age, and they were Catholic. Maybe they just went with their parents, but now they just don't ever associate with it. Don't go to mass.
Yeah.
Don't do anything like that. Which is, you know, sometimes it's part of the process, but it's tough to see, and I think it dims a lot of the light of what the Catholic Church is. I think it makes it seem, this old person church when it's really not. You know,
It's a
It's
vibrant young community.
mm-hmm.
We just went to Seek 2025 not that long ago.
Salt Lake City.
Salt Lake City. It's in Denver next year.
Mm-hmm.
Won't hint at where we go to college. But yeah, that's like such a big thing, is like the church is not dying, but it's very much growing and is having in a way, a kind of a renaissance of young people coming back to it.
Yeah.
This kind of like 2020s is like kind of a renaissance of young people. Like even at my home church, my mom goes to mass, and it's like there's younger couples with children going to mass more, and just younger people in general, like not even married, going to mass and wanting to be involved in the church. And I think that this new generation has a different look at like how the Catholic Church can work in the world, not by changing what the Catholic Church teaches, but how to implement it in a more, I don't know, generational way that in this new generation.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's interesting, like even how not necessarily Christian our like culture has become in America, but like just like based on Christian morals. You know, like it's so often you see in even like whatever you'd be watching the NFL or the NBA or something, and see a player like whatever, like in an interview, the first thing they say is like, yeah, thank God for the abilities that he's given me. And or like who was that? What kicker was that just the other day? On the Commanders, he'd make the sign of the cross every time before he kicked the ball.
We were watching that. I was noticing that.
It's like, wow, that's crazy. That like
even the most hated player in the NFL gave all glory to God, Patrick Mahomes.
It's true.
First thing he said when he won against the Bills.
And so I think it's interesting. Like we get to live in this time where, you know, religion for a while seemed like this dead and dying, like old trend that like people were falling away from. But now it's like so vibrant. It's so clear to see so many young people wanting to like follow that innate desire in their hearts and their souls to find this higher thing. It makes me think about, do you remember that? I think it's like right after COVID, something like that. There was like that big Kentucky revival.
Oh, in Asbury, where like it was like 72 hours.
Yeah, I don't remember where it was.
It was at Asbury College or
something. Yeah, it was like on a college campus or something like that. Like it was crazy.
Yeah, it was like in the midst of like, it was like right after COVID, like 2021,
like
when like lockdown mandates came up. But yeah, it's like 72 hours. Like they were in there and like praise music for 72 hours. Ton of people gave their life to Christ, which is amazing.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of baptisms happened.
Yeah, it was just like this crazy. Yeah, I think people started to wake up and realize that like there's more to this life, you know, especially post-COVID where so many things were shut down.
Yeah.
A lot of things happen. And so, yeah, it's just like inspiring to see, to be a young person in this world wanting to pursue your faith.
I think coming out of like COVID a lot of people either became less material and thinking like less about themselves and less about like worldly possessions, because so many things were shut down that they had to like look at like family in a different way or friends in a different way. And they were like, this is like a limited time in a way, like that I have these people. So there's something greater in that relationship, and they either became less material or more material because they miss those things so much.
Sure.
And I think that I think that's a big thing, is a lot of people did choose to be in a way less material, in that they were thinking of not just themselves but others, and like even if they don't believe in like the Christian God, like a higher power of some sort, and they were thinking of that more than themselves. So I think there's a big, I feel like from people I met that there's a big push for like selflessness in a way.
Definitely.
Nowadays.
Definitely. Yeah. Realizing that there's a lot bigger world outside of our own little circle
yeah.
of what we know. But yeah.
Way bigger world.
All right. This next question, kind of building off what we were talking about earlier, like the meaning or like why you wanted to start this podcast. Like what sort of, I don't want to say education or like what gives you the grounds to talk on these things, but kind of that. like why are you interested in these things? You don't come across very many young adult people that
strapping, handsome young men. Yeah.
Tall, dark, handsome. Two tall, dark, and handsome young men that want to talk about these things. What made you have this desire? Like why do you want to talk about some, like we were talking about, like deeper theological things?
Yeah. As you know, I'm going to school for religious studies, wanting to pursue higher education theology, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to teach theology. I was a psychology major, and then I was like, nope. And then I was a music major, and then I was like, and so then I chose religious studies and wanting to go into that theological like world of being able to study it, to research it, to teach it is just like something that's always driven me to it. And what gives me like what gives me the, in a way, authority to talk about it. I think anyone can talk about God, right? But it's also like, one, if we're like doing an episode about justification, you better do your research about justification. Like you better read something about it. You better know a good grasp on it. You better also know the Catholic view of it, the Protestant view of it, if that's Calvin's view, Martin Luther's view. If you even look at like, what do Mormons think about it? Like, no, like more of like why people are thinking about it, so then you can like, of course, hold your stance on the Catholic view of justification.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you have the willingness to study it, the willingness to talk about it, and the love for Christ to then radiate it so that other people can be receptive to hear it and to like even just want to hear it, not even receive it. Like, I think that's the biggest thing. And yeah. What about you? Why did you want to start this podcast with me?
I don't know. Well, like I was saying earlier, I think, to kind of show how vibrant the church is, and why, like, kind of also why it matters to have these sets of morals and standards and things like that, like to be whatever, have some sort of faith, whether, for me, like being Catholic has been one of the, if not the greatest thing in my life. I think, my parents choosing to raise me, my siblings as Catholics, being a cradle Catholic, like gives me an understanding of the church and its teachings and stuff, but also like, kind of what you're saying, also wanting to spread it, wanting to be radiating with that joy, wanting to go into the inner room, go into the Holy of Holies and come out radiating and just full of joy with the Lord and stuff. And so I mean, I'm not a religious studies major. I have a minor in it, but I'm not, I don't have a ton of grounds to speak on deeply theological things, but I have, being raised Catholic, and I went to Catholic school from kindergarten to 8th grade. Just being raised in that, I think you come around to knowing a lot of these things, or just getting an understanding of them. And I'm sure just being in the church, hearing different priests' sermons and all that, you get to know a lot. All right, this one might be hard hitting here. What does being Catholic mean to you?
Wow, Easton, this is a great question. Easton, you come with the hard hitting questions, really, out of every interviewer. What does it mean to be Catholic? So I think the first thing is, I think the biggest thing, like the one phrase that can kind of sum up what it means to be Catholic is to know love and to spread love, I would say. So, like, as you know, we've talked about this a lot, but like one of my biggest sayings is the act of creation was love, and because the act of creation was love, we are made to love. So, I actually just in Bible study yesterday that I was leading, we were reading through salvation history and talking about God's fatherhood and God's how we have sonship because of God, because of God creating us. And as it says in Genesis 1, it says, God made man in his image. And then in Genesis 3, it says Adam had a son, Seth, and he was in his image and likeness as well, in Adam's image and likeness. And so there's that sonship, right?
Right.
That we have sonship and daughtership to God, and that's what makes him love. And if the act of creation is love, then God is like full, like is like his personality, quote unquote, is love, right? And so if love made us, then we are made to love love. in that way, that's like it sounds so convoluted in a way, because it's like love cannot, how does love love love? How does love love love? Because
Love.
But yeah, so to be Catholic is to know love and to spread love, right? So one, you have to know God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit, the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. You have to know the Lord. And then secondly is to spread that love, to one, know the Lord, but also to know him so much and love him so much that you want other people to love him. And I think that's the biggest thing. And a lot of people, like a lot of Protestants, are very evangelical. They want to evangelize. They really want to spread the word. And a lot of them think like, oh, the Catholic Church does not want to do that. Like you don't see Catholics on the street corner preaching. You don't see Catholics going up to people just talking all the time. You see like evangelical Christians, non-denominational Christians, like Baptists, whatever denomination, going up and like talking to people, but they don't see like Catholics doing that. But I think the biggest push that I think the Catholic Church needs to take in answering your question is to evangelize in a more intimate way, of not just saying, oh, you have to go to Mass to know, but first cultivating a friendship with that person, not even like just a quick acquaintanceship, just so that they know that you care, and then to show them that there's so much vibrancy within the Catholic Church. Like you don't just have to be a religious or a priest to be holy. Like there's so many holy lay people in the church, so many holy people just in the world that you don't even know about,
right.
Like from continent to continent. So you have to know God, you have to know love, and then you have to know the love incarnate, which is Jesus Christ, and know his gospel, and then to spread that good news and spread the love of Christ to every corner of the world. As if your world is the state of Nevada, spread it to Nevada. If your whole world is a small little town in, I don't know, like Africa, like a small little town in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, you better spread it there. Like that's our call, right? So to know love and to spread love.
That's great. That's awesome. What's your deal with Nevada?
Nevada needs it. Have you been to Las Vegas?
That's true. You're not wrong. Although most people in Las Vegas aren't even from Nevada.
Exactly.
Kind of just visiting. Have you been to Vegas?
Yeah, I have.
Me too. Oddly enough.
Should we go to Vegas?
Spring break?
Oh, podcast in Las Vegas. Street preaching.
Playing blackjack.
While spreading the word. Yeah. I'm putting it all on Isaiah 41.
Going all in on the Lord.
Can I gamble my way to the holies of holies?
That's funny. No, I like what you said, though, about the Catholic Church, like, being love. Like, I think that's such a huge thing that so many people kind of get caught up in, is in religion, they don't see the love that is so present and so
Mhm.
incarnate. You know, you're talking about knowing God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit, and like that incarnate love of everything. Like Jesus didn't have to come.
Mhm.
He didn't that he didn't have to come here. He didn't have to die on the cross. He didn't have to work all these amazing miracles, and but he did. And like that's just out of love, and like the love that is just so evident, so present in that, and just like the love that he comes from with the Father, and then like through Mary too. It's just like there's so much love there in the Catholic Church. So yeah, I think like if I was to answer that question too, I'd say pretty much similar thing is like the only way to respond to love is love. You know, that's the like someone
Stereotypical
you know
Easton phrase right there.
But like you know, you think if you told someone, "Hey man, like I love you," and they don't say it back, you know, that's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird, and it's like, all right. And so like in that, like I think of like God telling you like, "I love you. I sent my son. I love you," and then you're just kind of like, nah. And so I think that's a huge part of like following that call of the church and of Jesus is just like loving that. And I think so many people get caught up in the whole like church aspect of being Catholic. Like, oh, you have to follow a tyrannical pope or communist pope, whatever, you know, a bunch of people call them crazy things. And that's just not, they don't understand.
It's not the whole of the church.
It's not the whole picture.
The church
It's
isn't
not
just
the whole
one
thing.
person.
Right, yeah. And like, yeah, people think, just being Catholic, you have to, whatever, follow these priests, or like if you're a man, you have to become a priest to get to heaven. If you're Catholic, or if you're a woman, you have to have children to get to heaven, or something like that.
Sister.
Just like some things that I've heard before, and it's like, oh gosh, like the worldview of what being Catholic is so mixed, is just so hard that people like just don't understand what it actually means, and what our call is really, like from Jesus, to just love and to spread that love and to be on fire with that love, like you're saying, just spreading the word. I think the Catholic Church, has definitely done great things in other parts of the world as far as spreading the word and evangelizing, but in the Americas too, it's been not the greatest. In the
Mary
past.
had to come so that she could convert the Americas.
In the past 100 years, it's not been great. Yeah, Our Lady of Guadalupe had to come to convert 10 million people or whatever.
But yeah, like a lot of people don't feel that love, or think that like to be Catholic, you have to be a priest, or you have to be a religious sister.
Sure.
And like to be a saint, you have to be a priest or a religious sister. Like that's like the majority of saints is a priest or a religious sister or a brother or any of that. And I think the biggest thing is that the definition of a saint isn't a priest that allowed God to change him, or a religious sister that allowed God to change her. It's a saint was a sinner, and the sinner allowed God to change them. Like a sinner is everyone. So
Right.
That's like the biggest thing. And like just the love aspect of that, like in the Catholic Church especially, we have the sacrament of reconciliation. Like think of how much love is outpoured in that, like to change your heart, to be able to in a way, like the imagery that I always think about is like, when we sin, our heart's corrupted, like our spiritual heart, not our like actual heart, but our spiritual heart for Christ is like corrupted and molded in a different way. So it's like molded more towards the world. But then when we go to confession, we are able to have God, Jesus Christ, really mold our heart back to his sacred heart, to be so that we are conformed with his reality, which is like the true reality, and not the reality of the world telling us what we have to do, not the sinful reality that we have to follow, but this heavenly reality. And like it's John Bosco's feast day when we're saying this, and he's saying like let your feet walk on this earth, but let your heart be up in heaven. Right. So it's like, how do we live that out in this world now, especially?
Right, yeah. And I think of also like St. Thomas Aquinas saying, like, I think it was him saying, like, pretty much we're not. This world is just like a boat for us.
Yeah.
You know, it's just taking us where we want to go, like where our heart's desire, where we will be fully at peace, which is in the presence of God in heaven. And like that's it. Like we're in this world, but we're not of it. We're able to go around. And yeah, I think part of it also, like responding to that love, is just like the complete surrender to that love. I think so many people have, like in the Catholic Church, I see that as like a really prevalent part of it. As I'm saying, like I don't know a ton of like whatever Protestant teachings on this, or you know, even other religions like Buddha or anything like that. But like the complete and total surrender to God is something I think that's just so evident, and it's complete and total surrender to God's love. You know, that's how like these great people in the Catholic Church did so many things, is because they just completely gave up who they were or their things of this world just to become saints. Like I think of like Saint Francis, who's, you know, the son of like a wealthy merchant.
Yeah.
And like could have been pretty well set off in life, and like would have been doing fine, and then had this like radical change in his life. Felt the God's love, felt the radical love of God, and literally went out and built a church. Then realized that's not what God was actually calling him to. When he said, "Go, Francis, go build my church," and then went out and founded the Franciscans and did all this amazing work. It's like just because he was able to do that, not through his own human ability, but through his radical surrender to God. I think that's so much of what our Catholic teaching is, and like what it means to be Catholic is just like radically surrendering yourself to the love of God by responding with love.
Yeah. I think love is the only response, really.
Right.
It's the only answer that you could give that doesn't have any really like loopholes. I don't feel like you can't find like a deficiency with that.
Right.
I don't know.
You're not gonna find a deficiency in God's love.
Oh no. Vitamin love. Yeah.
All right, moving on then.
Your flashlight's on.
Yeah, I know.
You did not know. You did not know that.
Trying to get the lighting a little better on these pale white walls.
Yeah, my asylum walls.
They're not padded anymore.
Yeah, these are locked actually. Like these can't open. Like these windows. These are actually fake windows.
Oh, okay.
Like it's
Wait, what windows?
Exactly.
Moving on.
Okay.
Who is your favorite saint / confirmation saint, if you don't want to?
Ethan, you hit with the hard questions. Actually, you know what? I'm going to have you answer this one first. This is also my podcast.
Okay. Wow. All right. Starting this one off with love. I can answer this. Let's see. I'll go with my
Saint Moses the Black.
I do like Saint Moses the Black.
Saint Bernard of Clairvaux.
Can't say I know his story too well. No, I'll go with my confirmation saint, Saint Ignatius.
Boo! I'm kidding.
Saint Iggy
of Loyola.
Saint Ignatius of Loyola, founder of the Jesuits. Let's go.
Jesuit up.
And I honestly, when I picked him as my confirmation saint, I had no idea what his story was. The only thing I really knew about his story, it's like this guy, he was a general, like he was high up in the army, like he was like did crazy things, like
got hit by a cannon.
Well, yeah, and then like he was in battle and got hit by a cannonball, and like back then to survive that, like of course he got hit in the leg and like shattered his leg. To survive something like that would have been like
he was literally
very
on
slim chances.
They literally had him on a deathbed.
Right, yeah.
For like months.
Yeah, and like for him to survive that is like, just the odds are so against you, especially whatever in the 1500s where
for sure.
medicine was
non-existent.
Not what it is today.
They chopped your leg off or see if it healed.
Yeah, and then get infected and
Random chance.
A lot of people just die. Yeah, didn't understand germ theory wasn't around yet, but yeah, picked him as my confirmation saint, not knowing a ton about him other than had a cannonball hit his leg and he lived through that and then became a saint and founded the Jesuits. And I'd heard a little bit about the Jesuits before, just like mostly like the North American martyrs,
Mm-hmm.
like St. Isaac Jogues and St. John Brebeuf and all those guys that like died horrific deaths. Like, oh my gosh, you talk about martyrs who,
Oh yeah.
like, oh man, that's intense stuff there. But I knew they were Jesuits. I'm like, all right, those guys are sick. And then like hearing the term like Jesuits were like the Marines of the church.
Oh, yeah, that's
where like anywhere the Pope needed people to go,
they
were there. Like they were the first ones there. Whatever.
The largest order.
Right. Yeah. And like even like St. Francis Xavier too. I'd heard of him, and like he was like the one that built the church in a lot of whatever Asian countries and stuff. And like he wanted to go to China, go into the Forbidden City, which is like
forbidden.
Yeah, no one would have ever wanted to do that. And like, what the heck? Like these guys are crazy. Like every Jesuit, like I would come across like that's insane. But I didn't really know a whole lot about him, and so had picked Saint Ignatius, and didn't know a ton about him until I came to college, and then got to learn more about him, read about him, and read his story, and just like, his just the amazing amount of things that he was able to do in his life, and like what he was able to do in like, especially after getting hit with a cannonball. Like it's
having
amazing.
to limp around.
It's amazing.
Walking all the way to Israel.
Yeah, it's amazing that he was ever even able to walk, and let alone walk like, I don't know, probably like thousands of miles.
Yeah, barefoot. A lot of them.
Yeah, and like getting to read his story of going through the mountains and walking to these places, then staying 6 months at oh gosh, what's that monastery called?
I forget.
I can't think of it. Anyways, and like just his whole conversion story, it just seemed like
leave that in there.
We're keeping this one cut. His whole conversion story. All right. His whole conversion story, where I feel like sometimes you read the story of saints and it's like, wow, it seems just so.
Let me get someone real quick.
So straightforward for these saints. Seems like they're so easy for them.
Yeah, find where this is.
And that they never really like struggled. But hearing his story, like whatever, he was 26, 28, 26 when he got hit by the cannonball.
26 or 20. Yeah, it was 26 or 20. Let me see.
26.
It's like the first line of this.
Something like that. That he got hit, and then that's when his conversion started. Like he had lived this whole life not doing that, and then had such a radical change in his life, radical response. And
he was 26.
So 26 years he went, and never really heard God's voice or really cared to, it sounds like, and but then did all these amazing things, and then founded this order that has done amazing things throughout history and still continues to do great things today, even though they've changed their focus a little, less missionary work. Well, I wouldn't even say that. Doing a lot of education today and missionary work and just so many things for the church. And just everything about him, that he had these struggles as he was on his way. Like he had that cannonball moment that was caused his like first conversion, but then he never he still struggled after that. And that's so inspiring to me, and that means like so much that he's able to, after that, keep going. And like, even like when I think one of my favorite stories of him is like he got ordained as a priest, and he was so like, he's kind of known as like a crybaby by his friends.
Yeah.
It's like what they'd call him sometimes.
You just go
because
set out in nature and look at the stars and start crying.
Yeah, or he'd be in mass and he'd just start bawling. Like he would cry multiple times during mass just because he like the the weight of what it means was so much. And there's a kind of a funny story, or I don't know, not funny, I shouldn't say that, just like inspiring story of
Crybaby.
when he first became a priest. He didn't say a mass. He didn't say a mass himself for the first, like, I want to say it's like 5 or 6 years that he was a priest. He didn't feel that he was worthy of doing this, of being the one, of whatever, being in
Wow.
in persona Christi, and like he didn't feel that he was worthy of this. And then he finally said it, and is like one of these like life-changing moments for him, where he's just like taking this priesthood and elevating it, like whatever, having the full fulfillment of it. It's like, wow, that's just like so inspiring, so amazing that this guy who, yeah, for so long in his life never cared, never understood, only wanted military success and women.
Yeah.
And but now is able to go through these things and do these things and find God's love like so present in his life, and like responding to that love radically.
Yeah, and we know our friend is writing a whole thesis about St. Ignatius' scrupulosity, and that probably played a big part into him not being able to say mass for 5 or 6 years.
Right, yeah, like seeing himself as unworthy, whereas God works through you.
Yeah.
God works through your weaknesses and stuff. So that's my confirmation saint / kind of favorite saint.
Favorite saint, yeah.
And if you'd like to respond, you know,
I have a lot of favorite saints.
well, I'll pick one.
I'm gonna list out some honorable mentions.
Okay.
I'd say an honorable mention is my confirmation saint, Saint Mark the Evangelist.
There we go.
So wrote Mark the Gospel. I would also say Saint Maximilian Kolbe. Love Saint Maximilian Kolbe.
Good one right there.
Saint Therese of Avila. Love Saint
Oh.
Therese, but not sadly my favorite saint. And last but not least, I would probably say Saint John the 23rd. I think
Ooh.
he's really cool. Been reading a lot of his writings. He's really good. But then I'm gonna go for the most niche and the most like basic answer of all time, JP2.
That's not basic. That's not basic.
Thank you. Thanks for that. No, JP2 is insane. Like the most seen man probably ever. Like in his time on being on Earth, like he was probably the most seen person of all time. So that's just insane. He was
Really?
the first pope to travel to out of Europe.
No,
Yeah,
that
world
can't
tour.
be right. Really?
123 countries. He was the first one
Travel outside of Europe?
because so during World War II or World War I, the Pope didn't leave. So during World War I or right before World War I, there was the Papal States,
Right.
which the Vatican ran, and then over time the Italian Empire kind of engulfed it and then took over, and the Pope didn't like the Italian government, so then he just stayed in the Vatican, even though it wasn't
Sure.
a city yet.
Sure.
And then they finally made it a city after World War I believe, and then World War II came, and Pope Pius didn't leave. He didn't leave the Vatican once. Like a ton of these popes didn't leave the Vatican at all.
Right.
And then they started traveling outside of the Vatican again, but like they would only go to like European countries. And then JP2 came, and then he actually went outside of Europe. So that's just super cool. And like just to look at his life story, like he was a priest he became a priest during World War II. He
In
went
Poland.
to in Poland, out of all places, was in an underground seminary, had like kind of an expedited like ordination, really. Like he went to like school for 4 years or something, and then he became a priest. Then after that, like 10 years later, he became the bishop of Krakow.
That's right.
And then he became the cardinal, and like his biggest thing is like, especially during like the takeover of Poland, and when Catholicism was very suppressed, and like if you were seen as Catholic, you could get killed.
Right.
Like his biggest thing was taking young people up to the mountains where one they could celebrate mass, hear confessions, and all that, and just be with them. Like to have them have the ability. He put his life on the line so that these young adults could have a relationship with Christ in the sacraments, which I just think is amazing. But then also like he's just like when he became Pope, one most traveled, but he cared so much.
Right.
Like he did not like unlike Pope Benedict, who I love Pope Benedict, he did not want to become Pope. Pope Benedict wanted to stay, write his books, be a teacher, and that was it. He did not want to become Pope. But of course, then he became the forerunner because him and John Paul were such good friends. Like they were best friends. Like in John Paul's last book, he only references Pope Benedict, then Cardinal Ratzinger, as his only friend. And he was like, to my dearest friend, Cardinal Ratzinger. So that's why, but like, besides that, he really, like, even, like, maybe, we don't know if I don't really know if he wanted to become Pope, but when he became Pope, he was serious, but he was
like so
approachable.
Full of life. So full of life.
He was approachable. Yeah. He wasn't like some of these popes that felt like kind of like higher than like in a way than like, oh, like, yeah, that's the Pope. Yes, he's a human, but just feels like I can't really connect with him. Like, I don't know. Like, I just can't connect with him, but he went on hikes. He would run away from the Vatican to go skiing. He wanted to like still live life, and like he had this kind of like youthful like exuberance that he irradiated throughout his life. And we were just at Seek, and Bill Doherty, right? That's his name. I think he was one of the speakers for the men's talk.
I think so, yeah.
He said that JP2 was like the symbol of masculinity. And when I was just like, I was really like meditating on that for like a week after. And I was just like, it's so true. Like, one, full surrender to Christ. Two, was so selfless. Like, didn't care who came up to him. He was gonna talk to them. He was gonna hear them out because they are like he knows what it's like to be human, and how it feels to have these like human emotions. Like, of course, a lot of people know that, but like he really cared about that human connection between a person and a person. He and like I think the greatest story of like how he was so selfless and how he was like thinking of others before himself was when he got shot and almost had an assassination attempt on his life. 10 years later, he went and heard that guy's confession. He became Catholic after that and heard his confession. I don't know if he was Catholic before that or whatever, but he heard his confession and talked to him, just in his cell, just him and this guy, and like forgave. Like, of course, he forgave him, but then allowed Christ to forgive him too. And I think that's like, there's so much selflessness in his life, and also, when you see a picture of JP2, you can't help but smile. He's just like, even like, like one of the greatest pictures of him is like you were talking about with St. Ignatius, like he would say mass and just cry. Is that picture where he's holding the host and he's speaking the words that Jesus said, and he's just crying, bawling. And this is like later. This is like in the 90s, so like he's getting his Parkinson's, like he's getting older and getting frailer, but he's just so in touch with God's love. And as we were saying, like you have to know love and to spread love, and that's what he like. All like his whole mission was just love, and I think that's the best thing. That's why I love JP2. I could go on forever, but if I was to say my favorite pope, it would be Pope Benedict, the 16th. I love his writings.
Cardinal Ratzinger.
Yep, Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger.
But
I like Cardinal Carol Wojtyła too.
I don't know. I'd say the one picture of JP2 holding the koala is pretty cool too.
Or him seeing the kangaroos. Have you seen that one?
Yeah.
Or there's one of him playing, kicking a soccer ball with a kid. That one's always good.
I got one from Seek. It's like a little postcard. where he the one where he's signing something for a kid on his back, and or the one I got that other one of him, he's just like sitting out with a bunch of like young people out in the woods, and he's like has his shoes off, and he's just like wearing shorts and a t-shirt or something pretty much, and he's just laying out like in the woods by a tree, whatever, just sitting there relaxing. Yeah. Wow.
He really
so cool.
He reminds me. Well, he probably knew about him maybe a little, but like of Pier Giorgio Frassati, just like I don't know, like a guy that you could just hang out with.
Just a guy being a dude.
But my favorite picture, as you know, I've showed it to you, and I'm gonna put it up on screen right here. Watch it. It's gonna be edited right there.
Okay.
Is him holding the monstrance in his golden what gosh, why am I blanking on the what do priests wear during mass? Chasuble. And he has the, I forgot what the cape is, but it's like the purifying cape, so that he doesn't get his hands on it, and he's holding it up, and there's a cross of Jesus right behind him. It's clear blue skies, and he's just holding it, and that's the coolest picture of him. Coolest picture.
A lot of cool pictures.
Coolest saint picture. What's the coolest saint picture? I know what you're gonna say.
What?
Pier Giorgio Frassati climbing the mountain.
I was gonna say that one, or of
Carlos Acutis in the Spider-Man costume.
Yeah, or of
Saint Therese, or Therese in her Joan of Arc costume.
Yeah, or I was gonna say Blessed Miguel Pro.
Oh,
before he gets shot. That one's crazy.
That one's there. There's also a picture, I believe, of Saint. I don't know. It's just a painting, but that painting of Saint Maximilian Kolbe in his prison gear, prison garbs. Like
there are pictures of him.
I think there's a picture. I know the painting.
Right.
So, but he's so cool. Oh my gosh. I want a
beard.
Yeah, I want one of those.
It's masculine urge to have a beard. Like
it's like I met Father Boniface at Sikh. He's a writer and everything, and he's really cool. He's a huge, like down to here, and he's just a small little guy. Huge beard.
I love it when they get into that. Like,
yeah.
Just, like,
I watched a priest giving a homily, and he's like, Jesus loves you, and he was just like,
you just know something wise is about to come out.
Something wise. Yeah, something amazing. Also, when they're bald.
Yeah, or like they got the buzz.
Yeah, the tonsure.
Yeah,
the tonsure with a big beard has to go crazy.
St. Thomas Aquinas cut.
St. Thomas Aquinas cut.
All right, getting close to the last question here. 2 more. We might need to pull this out a little bit. What is your favorite Bible verse?
Ooh, Bible verse.
I got one that I know that I want to say. If you want me to go first,
there's a theological one, which tackles with the problem of evil, and it's not even. It's like it just introduces like why, like the whole book of this, or I could go for probably the one that I meditate on a lot, which is also the shortest Bible verse. So I'll say both. So there's
you got to pick one.
Let me.
Just one Bible verse.
One Bible verse.
I mean, there's so many. Yeah, I don't know how you couldn't pick more, but I'm keeping it. I'm being a good interviewer, I should say. Keeping it one. You got to know what is your favorite Bible verse. Do we need the play-by-play? He opens up the Bible, flips to Job.
So, because Job is my favorite book.
Okay.
I love because it's one of the wisdom books.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the dialogue between Satan and God about tempting Job, and I'll just read it all. And the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil? He still holds fast his integrity, although you moved me against him to destroy him without cause." Then Satan said to the Lord, "Skin for skin, all that man has he will give for his life. But put forth your hand now and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse you to your face. And the Lord said to him, to Satan, behold, he is in your power, only spare his life. Because then you need the whole context of Job. But like that dialogue between Satan, like God is so solid in his belief, because God is always solid in his belief. And he's like, yeah, this guy is blameless. He has done no wrong. He fears me. He loves me, and he'll do anything for me.
Right.
But then Satan's just like, no, skin for skin. Like I will test him. I will truly test him. And God's like, okay, he's in your control. Only spare his life. And like, of course, we know how Job does continue to believe in God throughout the book. But just that dialogue between Satan and God, and knowing that God is so, if he knows that you truly believe, he's never going to, well, just in general, he's never going to allow anything to happen to you where you can't take it.
Right.
And he knows Job is like one of the most righteous men in his town. Well, in his like civilization, if you call it, because houses were so sporadic back then. Like he had a huge house, but he had a ton of sheep and stuff, and his friends were of distant towns and didn't have the same belief as him, and thought that this God was tyrannical and this God didn't love him and everything. But Job knew, and the Lord knew that Job knew. And I think that's just so powerful nowadays. It's like, if you know God, you're going to know that he knows you.
Right.
And it's just like, yeah, I just also love, oh gosh, why am I burping so much? I just love, the whole story of Job, because it's just so like deep and super hard to understand it sometimes, because you're like, did Job like not believe in God during this verse?
Right.
Does he like be crying and all that? And then he replies and he's like, no, the Lord is actually good. It's like, it's a whole thing. It's the human experience
Right.
in this whole book. But yeah, that dialogue between Satan and God is just, I love that. It's very niche Bible verse pick.
And I think
it's also 3 verses.
Yeah.
Do I have to pick a new one?
No. I think it's also really interesting in that, looking at it, that God didn't forget Job. Like, even though whatever this dialogue was happening, God didn't forget Job, and he didn't like forsake him or anything. Like the whole time God was there with him, and the whole time Job still believed in God. And like, that's so powerful. Like, through these setbacks, through all of his cattle and sheep being killed and all these things, Job was still there. And I think the other thing interesting about that is, like, we don't know, was Job a real person? Was he?
Yeah. It could, there's a whole, but the human experience of Job is so vibrant nowadays. Like,
definitely
every human can relate to Job, of feeling this love and then not feeling it, and then being convicted of it again and not feeling it, and then love, really seeing it and being like, oh, my friends are actually trying to pull me away from God. Like, this is not good.
Right.
Ooh, you're going to Old Testament.
I'm going. Yeah.
You're also going to Old Testament.
I'm finding mine.
Mine's
kind of a whole.
I don't even know what book this is.
Well, you'll find out.
It's a Psalm. Psalm 23.
Perchance.
He green pastures, maybe. Are there some green pastures in this?
Perchance. I think this is my favorite. Psalm 23, verse 4. I love this. Love this one. It says, even though I walk through a valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. I think that is so, like, also kind of similar in that that's like that shared, like that human experience. So many people know these times in their lives that they're so full of doubt, so full of sadness, so full of these things that they just feel like there's no, the shadow of death is all over them. There's no, the shadows are all over them, and there's nothing that they can do.
There's no light in their life.
Yeah, there's nothing, there's no way out. But knowing that whoever, assuming David wrote this, like, even though I walk through this, I fear no evil. It makes me also really think of like things happening in the world that people, like we were saying earlier, like we're in this world, we're not of it. But people, when they get caught up in like the things of this world, like no wonder you have so much anxiety or so many things. Like humans kind of are terrible and like they do bad things. But there is, when we have God with us, there's nothing to fear.
Yeah.
Even though like the worst thing, if we're thinking simply just purely off of human instincts and stuff, the worst thing that can happen to us is death. And even though you're in the shadow, you're in the valley of death, you're in like the worst possible place, you fear no evil because God is with you.
Yeah.
Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Like these things, they're there with you. And like these human experiences, like sure, it can, be terrible. There's so many like bad things that happen in our world and bad things that happen to people. But as long as we like keep this faith, as long as we keep that, God's rod and his staff with us, there's no thing that a human can do to us. As long as we keep that hope and as long as we keep that love of God with us, there's nothing that can take you away from those things. And like, I don't know, the whole psalm just says, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. So like the Lord is leading you to these great places, these wonderful, awesome, the paradise. And then it goes on to say, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And then finally it says, you prepare a table before me, in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely, goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Like, come on. Like,
that's just
there's nothing,
bars.
There's nothing the enemy can do because we're anointed. We're loved by God. His rod and his staff are there with us. And it's like, there's nothing that can happen to us. Like the Lord will lead us to green pastures and lead us to still waters. Like he'll lead us to these amazing things. It's just that we got to trust in him.
We were talking kind of about like canyons and
a
lot of people are in canyons, right? And sometimes and think of God as the sun, right? And then as it goes orbits, or the sun, or the earth orbits the sun, right? Or as you believe the sun orbits the earth, because you're a flat earther. No, but the sun is God, and this big old canyon, think of the Grand Canyon. Like once it moves, there's some light here, but then there's like shadows over here. And then even right here, there's still a lot of sun. There's so much sun. You can see into it, but there's still shadows. And even like right here, all the way up, straight down into the canyon, there's still shadows, right? And I think we're talking about that, and it's just like, how do we allow ourselves to kind of like smooth out the edges so that all the shadows can be shown and made and kind of dispersed by this light.
Right.
And I think a lot of people nowadays, it's a lot easier to get down a canyon to get out of it. So it's like, how does one get out of it? And that's by, I don't know. Like, how are you able to see this, the Lord as someone that can smooth out your rough edges and to make you a recipient for this glowing light, this vibrancy of life, and not someone who dwells in a cave and like kind of is by by themselves.
Right, and that fears so much in this world and things that could happen to them. So yeah, that's my favorite Bible verse. King David, some bars there.
Bars.
All right, and then finally, to wrap it up, kind of connecting back to one of our other questions.
Who's your favorite friend?
Jesus.
Jimmy Carter.
Why is it important to be active in your Catholic faith now?
Ooh. Why is it important?
Why is that important?
It's important. Wow. So, as I said about why it's like, what does it mean to be Catholic?
Mm-hmm.
You have to know love to spread love. I won't say it again. You have to know love to spread love. I just said it again. But to be active is to actively, like, you could have known love, right?
Right.
Everyone's felt love. Like, you could be in like a relationship and be like, oh, I felt love there, but you're not feeling that at the moment, right? Or you're like, oh, when I was back home, I really felt love for my parents, but now, like, I'm away from them. Like, I still know they love me, but I don't feel it. So I think to be active in your Catholic faith is to be, one, not having it be like a one-way relationship where God's loving you, but you're kind of putting God into those shadows so that you don't see him, putting him into the closet, shutting him away, and being like, maybe I need to get some God's love today, and then shut it. But it's like an active one where you're actively walking with God, right? You're not selecting when you get to walk with him, but actively walking with him and allowing his love to be the guiding factor for what you do for the day. Of course, like God's will. So even in the smallest little actions, like the little way of Saint Therese, like allowing God to work through those small things and allowing God to be the center of those small things. So if you're doing dishes, like being like, I'm cleaning this house so that I can honor God and keeping the things that he's given me clean for my my gratefulness for this prosperity. Like being able to see God in all things is one of the Jesuit values, finding God in all things. So one is being active in your faith. But then secondly is, like, why is it important? Well, so I think I got it wrong. So why it's important to be active in your faith? One, because you can't be sustained by like a life that's not centered around God. Like, there's not going to be anything. And to tie into that, one of the things I read recently was prayer is the most powerful thing a human can do on earth, and without prayer, faith in God is impossible. So to be active in Catholic faith, you have to have prayer, daily prayer, whether that's like Alexia Divina, reading scripture prayerfully, or if that's saying the rosary, being able to meditate on the life of Christ through Mary's intercession, or whether that's going to daily mass, like being able to receive the sacrament, to hear the word and to meditate on that word after, or just contemplative prayer, being in that space with God where nothing else is consuming your mind, but you're just in awe of God. So you need that life of prayer. And this life of prayer is not only going to give you deeper faith, but it's also going to show you what life is actually made for, because prayer is the like, microscopes, or like microscopes, right? To see small things. Micro. Like, you can see a world that you can't see. Prayer is how you're able to see and feel what heaven is like, because it's just peace with God. Right? And of course, Mass is like you're actively with God. Like, Jesus is, of course, present in the Eucharist.
Calvary.
Yep. We're there every Sunday or more. But yeah, be active is to actively want to pursue love. And through that, there are things that you have to do, which is like daily prayer, going to Mass on Sunday. And a third part with that is, as we were talking about, like evangelizing, telling people, like, of course, not overbearing them where it's like the only thing you talk about with your friends, but being like, hey, you want to come to Mass? Hey, I'm starting up a Bible study. Do you want to come to my Bible study? Hey, I saw this really great video. I'll send it to you so you can watch it. Like, small things that, like, to show, one, that you care about this person, but that ultimately God cares about them more than any human on this earth can.
Right.
So why it's important is because prayer deepens your relationship with God and shows you for the purpose in which you were made for, which is heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly is going to mass every Sunday, because God, one, commands us to keep holy the Sabbath, and the Sabbath now is Sunday, right? The day that Jesus comes to us, that he rose and he beat death. And then thirdly is evangelizing, because one, you're not only deepening your faith. In a way, sometimes people will think, oh, it's only my faith with Jesus, but we need to see that this faith is for everyone. Catholic means universal. This Catholic faith is a universal faith that God gave to everyone, and we need to spread that so that, one, we can, through that, you can deepen your own relationship with this person, but also see them deepen their relationship with Jesus Christ. And I think that's the main reason that you have to be active, is because this world is not the end, and you don't want to be on, as that Protestant guy Cliff says, like, he goes to college campuses and talks,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that old guy. Like, some things he says, a little iffy, but like an imagery, we don't know if this would happen or anything, but this imagery of, on the day of judgment, God raising up the living in the, or judging the living and the dead, and you're, in a way, going up to heaven, and your friend staying on earth, and he's like, why did you never tell me? And like, you never want to have that feeling of, oh, I never really preached the gospel to this person. I never showed them through my actions. I never invited them.
Mm-hmm.
I never tried to help them deepen their faith. Like, this is a universal faith for everyone.
Definitely. Yeah, I think. Yeah, my answer would be similar. I think it's so important to be active in your faith, because, yeah, as Jesus says, it's going to be like a thief in the night.
Mm-hmm.
No idea. You can't plan for those end days. You don't know what it's going to be like. No, I don't think, being active in the faith shouldn't be driven out of something like fear, like
no.
that. I think there's
true love.
Right, yeah, it should be that love. And I think it's so important to be in that, because, like we were saying earlier, you're saying in Genesis, we're made in the image of God, and our deepest, most inmost beings desire for that intimacy and desire for more, desire, like, we know, just if we really slow down and listen to our bodies and our hearts and our souls, like, we know this world doesn't give us what we need.
It's just a boat.
Right. It doesn't give us, like, it's there's some things that are, like, whatever, can make us content for a little bit, but we're never going to achieve that full ability to be content until we are resting in God. And so I think that's a huge thing of, like, why it's important to be active in your faith, is because you're just never, if you're not active in your Catholic faith, you're just never going to find that anything that can really put you at rest, and that can, just become the center of your life, and become the thing that makes you do everything in your life. And and I think along with that comes with the hope, like I was talking about in that psalm, like, even though the worst of the worst can happen to us, even though, you look at the story of the saints, and some saints spent like half their life in prison and being tortured, and, like, having these awful things happen to them, that humans,
St. Paul,
right, and that, like, humans do, but yet they were so hopeful. They never wavered. They never gave up their faith. They never really, like, they're always true to their faith, and that just gives me so much hope. That is so, like, we're stripped away of hope so much, so often in today, and, like, in our world and stuff, that it almost seems like a childish thing to hope.
Yeah.
And it seems like something that, oh, okay, like, yeah, and like in kids' movies, it's so often like, oh, if we only hope, and, if we just wish it'll happen, it'll happen. And it's like, it seems like so childish, and especially as, like, an adult, you almost seem like, what do you mean? Like, look around you. How can there be hope anywhere around you? Like, how's this? Like, you're just being so naive. But when you become a follower, and like when you really surrender to Jesus, there's so much hope that comes with that. And there's so much more to life than just what happens around you or who you're around or anything like that. And so, yeah, I think that's a huge part of it, is being active. Is it gives you, it's so life-giving and so fulfilling, because like, not that it doesn't matter what happens around you, but there's like, it just gives so much meaning to your life. And
because there's a higher purpose,
right,
than something that, like, on this earth, like your purpose, if you don't believe in God, is just something that you're gonna do and then you're gonna be forgotten.
Right, you're gonna.
But there's a higher purpose, that in the Christian view, that there's a higher purpose in which we were made.
Definitely,
there's a will for all of us.
Definitely, and I think that the very act, like having the opportunity to have that, is so important, and so important for all of us. So, yeah, be active in your Catholic faith.
Do it.
Go to Mass. Fall in love with Jesus. I'm working on it.
He's in love with you. Now it's up to you to fall in love with him.
So that's all I have as far as questions and stuff. I know this first one kind of felt like an interview kind of
I didn't even get to ask you questions.
We didn't really, just kind of talk. And
spur of the moment.
Yeah, a little bit. But hopefully it went well.
I think so.
Like and subscribe. Leave your suggestions.
Should we get like a thumbnail?
Are you gonna smile?
No. Why would I smile?
I don't know. I just
was
because you're happy to be here.
I'll smile for you.
No, I won't smile. I'll put on a little smile. All right.
See you next time. Peace.
Love.
And a little dap up. There we go. All right. Cool.
All right.